So you are, if I might say, a spiritual and sexual therapist, teacher, but usually through a long years of my interviews and meeting different people doing different things, it kind of came up to maybe three important questions. It's not about what you do, but how you do it,
Yes.
why you do it, and how do you feel when doing it.
Yes.
So I've been wanting to ask you, we know what you do, I mean, but how do you feel, why you do it, and how you do it?
I mean, it's a difficult question to answer because it's like you said, you know what I do, but you know it because of one workshop. And what I do has such a wide spectrum that many things were never even touched in the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess first we have to define what I do. And that what is just living my life, really truly. You know, if I could say what the work is about, the work is the baby of having committed my own life to being a life committed to love and truth. And so in that regard, I have to look at all areas of my life and what kind of lifestyle habits I have, how I interact with people, how I interact with my own self, what are the quality of my relationships, what is the quality of the sex that I experience, what is the quality of food and air that I breathe and everything else. It's really a decision and a commitment of me living my life in the most conscious way possible. And by doing that, I find that it's of great service to other people to share what we know. And that goes for everybody's talents and beliefs and gifts that they're here to share. So what I do is really an extension of committing to living a beautiful life for myself. And in my perspective, what we have been taught to think that life is about is very different from what it actually is. And what we have been taught to think about what it means to be human is also very different. You know, because when we turn on the news and we watch movies, we see a lot of violence. We see a lot of things that are something other than beings being very integrous in all of their actions. And a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of misery. In my perspective, we did not come here to this existence and to this life to experience pain and suffering and be unhappy. We came here to be orgasmic, joyous, loving, compassionate human beings. So that is what I know to be the truth, and that is what I try to embody every moment of my life and to plant that seed within everybody so that we as a humanity, as a global community, can continue to thrive and expand in what it really means to be human.
That is so beautifully said. Have you ever thought when you were 15 in school that you would do what you do today?
Yes and no, because I would have never guessed that I would do this. But I did want to do a few things. At first, I wanted to be a doctor.
Okay.
So I volunteered many hours at a hospital when I was actually 15, precisely 15 years old. And at that time, after volunteering for over 200 hours, I realized I'm not going to spend my life in a hospital. So scratch that off the list. Okay, I'm not going to be a doctor. Then I wanted to be a school teacher because I wanted to have that impact. I wanted to bring humanity to something more beautiful. So I actually went to school to be a school teacher. And then I realized there's much more to life. So then I started getting very much into spirituality, our human potential, and really the magic of life. And another thing that I also wanted to do was be an actress. So in a way, I became all three.
Right.
So I never would have guessed that I would do this, but in one way, I am a doctor in my own way. I am a teacher in my own way. And really, the reason why I wanted to be an actress to begin with was to be a role model for younger generations. It was at that time that I was seeing how, now you're going to know kind of how old I am, but at that time, Britney Spears was Britney Spears and Paris Hilton were kind of the role models for my generation when we were in high school, you know, when we were kids. And just seeing the quality of life that they were living, and I was thinking, if there were some celebrities that really use that power to show what it means to be a kind and loving and healthy human, that would be so impactful on the younger generations. So in a way, I also have become that. My own very small miniature version.
Yeah.
But it's that.
You actually, the beginning of your work, I mean, the knowledge you come across was in India, right?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Was it even before that?
I've never been to India.
No, really?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
I've
I'm
never
sorry,
been to India.
But you had an Indian teacher?
Mm-mm.
No.
Also
no.
no.
Also not.
No, I had a teacher with a Sanskrit name.
Okay.
He was a sannyasin of Osho, and hence the name. But I also want to say that everybody has been my teacher. And some of my greatest teachers are teachers that I have had very deep conversations with through books, because they live on and their spirit lives on through books. So this idea that people have about having one teacher for me is very, very inaccurate, because you have a lifetime of experiences, a lifetime of interactions. I mean, even with information that I share around relating and sex, your greatest teacher is your relationships and your sex, if you really pay attention. So you are your own greatest scientific experiment if you're willing to deeply explore that topic with awareness. Because of course there's a lot of people in the world that are in relationships, a lot of people in the world that are having sex, but they're all doing it unconsciously without ever really investigating and exploring their drives, their feelings, their challenges, and really making a scientific experiment out of it. But that's your greatest teacher.
I was really pleased when I was at your workshop that you asked us, what is pleasure for us? And I was amazed how we women see pleasure, how we feel it in our body, but not only in sexuality, but in everyday life.
Yes.
I was shocked. I was really shocked. And I'm so grateful even more for that, for you to come and to show us that actually pleasure is the meaning of this life.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Because this life for us, yes, we are spiritual beings, but in this life, we are in the body. The body functions through the senses, so we are sensual beings. And our connection to the body and connection to feeling is what this life is about. So yes, there can be pain, but there can be a lot of pleasure. And in fact, the workshop that you came to, that's the first time I've ever done that workshop. And it's the first time I've ever done a workshop for women only. And so my intention of doing that is because I see how many women on the planet are suffering, and suffering in a deep way. And for a woman, pleasure is something that connects her so deeply to her soul, her spirit, her femininity. Her pleasure is a way of really expanding her consciousness as her capacity for pleasure increases in the body. So, in some ways, yes, it's important for us to have pleasure as women, but this is so much bigger than just having pleasure for your own personal life. This is about the joy in the world and the power of women and how they have been robbed of their power because they have been robbed of enjoying themselves.
And I think that society still has problem with women's pleasure.
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, what are we referring to when we say society? Because there's society, meaning the energies that run the show, and then there's the society that are just humans that are the puppets within that show. So the energies that run the show, this is getting really in a deep conversation here, but the energies that run the show have to disempower you to keep the society enslaved, to keep a slave culture running. So the fastest way to disempower you is to take sex away from you. And this isn't just about female pleasure, it's also about male pleasure, masculine sexuality. Because we have some idea that if men are ejaculating, that they're all happy and joyous about it, but they're not. They may feel a little something, they may have some experience that women are not experiencing, but they're still lacking the orgasmicness of life, the orgasmicness of our sexual connections. So it's a global problem on pleasure and misery that is indoctrinated into the society so that we stay disempowered. Now, if we're talking about humans as a society, there's a lot of taboo on female pleasure just because it seems like a mystery. But it's so simple and it's so basic. Women are so simple. They are feeling beings and they have been robbed of the opportunity to feel their bodies. The moment that we are growing up and starting to really think and process information, we're all the time taught that we're not good enough. We're taught how we should be, how we shouldn't be, and for women especially, we're taught that what we look like and that our bodies are somehow not enough and not okay and not beautiful. So how can a woman ever really enjoy pleasure in her body, enjoy feeling her body, if she has been taught that her body is somehow ugly in whatever kind of way? And that's the difficulty around female pleasure. You have to have women really enjoying feeling themselves, understanding the beauty and the energy that runs through their body, that sensuality that runs through them, as really who they are, and not in comparison to an image they have seen on a magazine.
Is it maybe because we are used to that if we are feeling something, and if this is not a pleasurable feeling like joy or being happy, but it is sadness or pain, that we shut down. Because we cannot take the sadness and the angry. It's not good for a woman to be angry. Is that why we are shutting away from our bodies?
This is not just about women. Men are included in all of that. This is a human problem, and the human problem is that we don't know how to feel. And nowadays, especially in this modern culture where we all have a phone in our pocket, we have all kinds of internet available with videos and things to distract ourselves with, it creates even more opportunity for us to never have to face and feel anything. And not only that, but you're looked down upon for feeling certain feelings, right? So all of us are taught that anger is bad. Anger is beautiful. Anger is so-called bad or destructive when we don't allow ourselves to feel it fully, when it's repressed and it builds energy. But anger is beautiful in the sense that it's a feeling, a frequency, an energy that comes up when something is out of alignment with our being. And we know that as children. You want to jump in the puddle, your father says no, and you get angry. Why can't I do that? I want to do that. And then on a bigger scale, we get older, and now you're working the job that you don't want to have. You're in a relationship that you don't want to have. You've got family relationships that are not as you would like for them to be. So it's correct and appropriate for us to all have a healthy dose of anger when we are living a life that is out of alignment with us. But we have been taught that that's bad. So we don't want to feel anything. We don't want to feel the sadness. We don't want to feel the anger. We don't want to feel anything unlike being so-called nice. But all of us have that trauma. All of us have unprocessed feelings. And that's why we're so scared to feel, because the moment you get inside your body, the first thing that you're going to feel is everything that you have been repressing.
And especially in sexuality, that is actually, I think that your first words was slow down. Slow down. So even in sexuality, in sex, we are kind of, not even taught, but we see in movies, in porn, to do it all fast. Like it's passion, yes, we are, taking off our clothes and we're having sex. But you said that this is because we are so mental. because the sexuality is mental and not in our body, and we are afraid of feeling.
We call it passion,
Right.
and at the end of all that, did you really feel anything? Other than some excitement because you met this new guy and he's so dreamy and he really likes you, and now it's all this passion, but did your body actually feel good? Or was the whole process so fast that you never had the opportunity to relax enough to even find yourself in the interaction? So slowing down is not this kind of moral idea, because that's how it's talked about a lot. We need to have slow sex. You don't have to have slow sex. You have to have deeply feeling sex. And I personally find that when I move slower in sex, in eating, in drinking, in sipping on a cup of tea, that I am more present and am able to take in more of the experience. So it's really about that. And yes, sex for us is a complete mental arousal at this point in our lives because we don't even know how to do it any other way. And when you have porn so readily available, porn is a training playground to get you out of the body and into mental stimulation. And then you wonder why men have such a hard time connecting with women, because they have been taught to fantasize. And hence the problem with erectile dysfunction, which is now not an issue of men in their 70s, 60s, 50s, but in their 20s, because it's not a problem that is biological where they're having difficulties with their body functions. It's a connecting feeling problem. You have men in their early 20s that cannot have an erection in the presence of a woman because they don't know how to feel their body, for their body to respond to the woman's body naturally.
You've been working with men almost 8 years, 10 years, and as you said, this was your first workshop for women.
Yes.
Which we are really grateful to you. How does men approach sexuality differently than women? And where is the connection? Where are we the same?
The same, I would say, is, or it ought to be the same in our desire for intimacy. But what we desire as men and women is a little bit different. And it's different in that a woman is very heart-centered. So this is why women want to cuddle, they want to place the man's head on her breast, and just everything is in the upper part of the body. The man is genitally oriented, and this is of the body, this is the science of the body. He has more energy there. So both men and women want to have sex to feel love, to feel something beautiful. And of course there's exceptions to all of this, which I'm not going into, but to feel something beautiful, but how they express love, how they love and how they receive love happens through different parts of the body. And so men truly love through their penis. And where they really feel the most loved is also through their penis. And that's why it's so important for a man to, for one, be very much connected to that part of the body, to not repress that energy, because repressing it is what creates perversion, it's what creates violence, and a desire to really explode, which turns into rape and sexual abuse. So if we lived in a society where sex wasn't taboo, then men would really feel this potent love that sits in their genital area to deeply love women with that part of the body. And so women, they love from their hearts. That's where they want to express it. And it's a little bit different, but we have to understand each other and each other's bodies to give that which is most beautiful. So women will rob the men of interacting with their genitals. They think, no, first we cuddle, first we do this, and then I'm going to play hard to get. I have to go out with you on 10 dates before I, make myself available in this kind of way. And for the man, he will go to your vagina thinking that that's your favorite place in your body because he thinks like him. He knows for him, I like my penis being touched, so I'm going for her vagina. But for her, there's no energy there. She has more energy in her heart. So we have to understand how the male and female body is different to understand really truly if a man wants to arouse a woman, to open her, to get her juicy and luscious, it's not going for her vagina, it's actually going for her breast, her heart, her neck, all of the upper part of the body. And if a woman wants the man to open up, to be more loving, she actually has to go and connect with that part of the body for him, which is the genital area. And it's so backwards from what we have been taught in society. Men see porn, that porn does not show the pleasure of a woman in her upper part of the body. It's all about just penis, vagina. And for a woman to connect with the man's genitals, it's almost scary sometimes because they think that if I make myself available there, it means so many things about whether I'm a good woman or not, and attachment, and so many things get in the way. When if we were really natural, we would just love each other, and we would love each other with our bodies as well, even if that meant connecting sensually to support one another in this like sensual expression.
I just wanted to read this. The world of humanity is possessed of two wings, the male and the female. So long as these two wings are not equivalent in strength, the bird will not fly. So, in that you were speaking now, that we need to actually not only understand each other, but support each other in our own energies that we have. This is probably the way to be joyful.
Yes, and here's another very deep thing about what you just read. Those energies, the masculine and feminine, yes, they're external expressions of that, as you see in men and women, but they also are both inside of you. So, for an individual to fly, both of those energies have to be balanced and dancing and making love within that person. And what we have is something that is really out of balance, and not only out of balance, but backwards. Because most women are out of balance, not because they're extremely feminine, but because they're extremely masculine. And ignoring the feminine energy, resisting the feminine energy. And for many men, again, it's not that they're totally in their masculine power. They're too feminine nowadays. They're indecisive. They're taking a back seat. It's all about the woman, and they're not standing in their power. So what you have is individuals that where those energies are not uniting and dancing and being a powerhouse within each individual. And what we see in our dynamics with men and women is just a mirrored reflection of what goes on inside of each individual. And then you also wonder again, why is this happening so? Because it's an unstoppable force to unite. Whether that be women uniting more in sisterhood, men uniting to really come together to make changes in any kind of way, and for men and women to be harmonious, because those two parts are so complementary of one another. It creates a completion for manifestation, for creating, for transforming. It's so powerful. And then you look at, again, Hollywood, movies, right? I'm so glad I didn't end up being an actor.
Yeah, me too. I mean, you came to
yes. I was like,
not as an actor.
Yes, because I see that all of that is set up to create separation for us. You know, I've said this so many times when I speak to people that if you go to, let's say, Netflix, because Netflix is really popular culturally at this point, and you go under the romantic section category, there's not one movie under the romance category that is romantic. There's not one movie that is about love. What it's about is unhealthy relationships. Because in all those movies, even in the love stories, they fight, their love is conditional, there's betrayal, there's cheating, there's so many negative things. So we're all the time programmed, and we take in this information, and then it comes out in how we move in the world, and how we express, and how we relate in our love relationships in so many different ways. And all of that creates disharmony and separation. The disempowerment that comes when you separate the masculine and feminine and put them at war with one another, or put them in competition with one another, which is exactly what's going on now with the feminist movement.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk to you more about this female energy, as you were saying, that we have we have hard time to be connected to our feminine side, and to let it feel and let it work from this feminine side. I mean, all the jobs that are out there, most of them, are with, you have to go there with male energy if you want to succeed. But I think that I would love to see a politician, a woman politician, with female energy.
Yes.
I would so much love to see that. Or I don't know, a celebrity or TV host, or I don't know, somebody who is like an idol, like a women idol, but you know, with a lot of female energy.
I would love to see that too. In fact, I would even love if they weren't a TV host or a celebrity, but just a human that has made the commitment to living a life in alignment with who they are. So if a woman is a woman, for her to live like one. Because the women on the planet, like you said, that show up in business thinking, because it's a lie that they have to function like a man in the business world. But if they show up thinking that, they end up having some major health issues in their body. You cannot live a life of a lie. You cannot live a life where you are not being true to who you are. And in fact, the idea that a woman has to act like a man in the business world is disempowering to her productivity and the magic that she could have in the business world, not having to work so hard. Because women are magnets. They are magical beings. And if you function like a man, you put all the magic away. You stop using all the tools, and you have to work extra hard. You're not meant to do that. I mean, it's kind of like saying, overall, and of course there's exceptions to this, a male body is always going to be stronger, physically stronger. Their muscles are made to be bigger than a female body. Do you think that's a disadvantage? No. We are made to complement one another. So a man may have bigger muscles, but we may have the capacity to endure things and do things in another kind of way. Because life will never keep you disempowered. It's never going to leave one person in a weaker position than another. We all have our tools and gifts. We have to start using the tools. We have to remember that our tool and magic is our magnetism. And that magnetism is amplified the more receptive, soft, and transparent we become.
Can you repeat that, please?
You're going to have to rewind.
So everybody who wants to hear it again, just rewind. Okay, because it's a really strong message that you've sent. Because you said that women, we have, with our female energy, we can give birth to an amazing ideas, to creativity, because our bodies can create a new life.
A human. I mean, really think about that.
Right.
You can create a whole human. Human is one of the most complex beings that you can possibly put together, and you do that without putting in any work. You're not sitting around thinking, how am I going to build a finger and, this toe today? You're just creating it. So your womb is a creating machine. And it's not just for human babies. You can create anything. So when you're running a business, you can function like a man where you have to initiate, do, and be much more active. Or you can remember that everything comes to you and you just birth it. So if that means that you have to find certain employees, certain resources, whatever it is that you're wanting to manifest, your ability to feel is your magic. Your ability to love and desire deeply is your magic. That's the manifestation power of a woman.
Let's talk about our relationship with men, because we do not use female energy. We kind of take their position.
Yes.
We boss them around.
Yes.
And you said something very beautifully, that in a relationship there can only be one leader.
Yes.
So men were born being leaders, and women, we have problems trusting them.
Yeah, and I want to be careful with the words here,
Okay.
right? Because I would say that I'm a leader, and I'm good at leading. That's not, it's, leading is a masculine energy in itself, but two people cannot lead at the same time. And I know that I get tired of leading if I have to do it all the time. So I have my moments when I can lead, just like a mother. A mother is a leader to a child. She's a disciplinary, she's a guide. That's a very much masculine energy and a necessary one for a particular time frame of the child, to give them that safe container and guidance. But underneath all that, she's very much a woman. So we have to know when to put down that masculine way of being for our own enjoyment. So it's necessary for me, even being a leader, to understand that as I'm speaking and as I'm guiding, when I walk out of this room and I'm with a partner or with a male friend or even with a woman that just really is embodying that desire to be bossy, I enjoy following for my own pleasure. And I have to go in that position, because in that position I feel empowered to relax into my feminine and really truly enjoy what it means to be a woman. I don't know if I answered your question, but I wanted to make that correction with those words, because to say that men are all leaders and women always have to follow is true and not, because a woman can lead through her receptivity, deeply lead through her receptivity. And this is how a woman can run a business and be very successful, doing it through receptivity. It's your ability to feel and express your feeling nature creates people leading you in the way that you want. And if we bring that into conversation around sex, it makes it very easy to understand. A woman may say, well, if I'm going to let the man lead, how can I possibly have the quality of sex that I want without leading? You lead through your feeling nature. So by you being receptive, reflective in your expression, using your sounds and your moans and your breath, you open the way through your receptivity for him to be guided. And another really good example is partner dancing. The man leads in partner dancing, but you get to show him what you're feeling for and what mood you're in, so that they lead you in a way that you like. It seems, it's a very interesting dynamic, because even though the man leads, the woman's the one that's in control. And when the woman leads, she loses all control, really, truly. It may work for a short moment, but it's not true leadership.
Can we talk about what to do now, how to educate young people, how to educate children, very small children, to come into an awareness of their bodies, of being aware of their feelings, and of course leading them into a healthy relationship, into a healthy sexuality.
Yes.
From early on.
I find that we always want to know, for example, as women, we always want to know how to fix our partner and fix our children. Right? But we never want to look at ourselves, really, truly. And children are already perfect. they are the most connected to our essential nature. So when we grow up to be adults and we have guilt and shame and we're scared to feel and we don't have pleasure, we were not born this way. This is what happened to us through the conditioning and the programming, starting with our families, our school systems, society as a whole. So you don't have to do anything to children. You have to stop doing things to them, in fact. It's they will figure out what feels good to them. And a really great example of that is that a child knows when they want to do something and when they don't. We as adults sometimes are confused. We are in a relationship, we want to leave it, but we stay. We're in a job, we want to leave it, but we stay. We really have lost touch with our own intuition. Children are so clear about what makes them happy and what doesn't, what they want to do and what they don't want to do, when they want to express and when they want to be quiet. And this is where we have been trained out of that naturalness. And then we grow up to have somebody be doing and leading and forcing us to do things, and we don't know how to say no. We're not even sure if we're enjoying it or not. So the first thing that I always say to all adults is, first of all, you teach children by being who you are, period. Because children learn through mimicking what they see. They learn by example. They don't learn by you sitting them down and telling them things. It works if it's in alignment with how you're living. But if you're living your life one way and you're telling them to do something else, they're just paying attention to how you are. So if you want a child to enjoy their body, to enjoy themselves, you have to start enjoying your body, especially as women, right? We want our girls to understand how beautiful they are, but we ourselves are all the time judging ourselves and thinking that we're not good enough. And I see that, with my family, for example, is that they want us to feel good, but they're so hard on themselves all the time. And it's really quite painful for me to see the deep conditioning that is in there that prevents people like my mother from really truly enjoying her beauty as a woman, but understanding that she wants me to experience that. It makes very little sense to me. So that's one. And another part that's really important, especially when it comes to sexuality, leave them the space to enjoy things. We rush them all the time. When they want to play in the mud, they're using their senses. When they want to play in the bathtub for longer, and you're there just to watch them, and you think, okay, in 5 minutes we're getting out. They want to enjoy their bodies splashing in the water. They want to enjoy their bodies being rubbed. When you're brushing their hair, for example, I've seen so many parents, when they brush their hair, they do it in a way that hurts the child. So what are you training the child with? You're training the child that I love you and I'm doing this and it's painful, but you should be okay with it. And then they grow up to be an older young woman or an older young man, and you want them to know that, for example, if a boy does something to your body and it doesn't feel good, it's okay for you to say stop or no. But if you've been training them all through their childhood to never be able to say no to you, how are they going to do that when they get older? So you as a parent have to create sensual, pleasurable experiences for that child, just in how you rub lotion on their legs, or how you brush their hair, or how much time you allow for eating dinner versus rushing and having them stress about enjoying the sensual aspect of life.
And probably being really aware when you are with a child and doing things with a child. Aware of your own feelings and his or her feelings, right?
Yes, and being very present, right? Because so much of our connection sexually is based in the depth of the presence that we have together. But if you're not present with a child, you actually train them to not be present either, because it hurts to be around you when you're not there all the time. So when you spend quality time with a child and you're present with them and you are connected to just being together, that is what intimacy is based on. And this is what we have been trained out of, and why our relationships are so dull and boring.
Yes, it's like Eckhart Tolle said, like it's not about doing, it's about being. And it actually goes to everything that it is in your life.
Yes.
It's not about doing, it's about being.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it feels great being here with you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Maybe just to finish this conversation, I know it will take probably a lot of time to heal the humanity. I mean, to come back to our roots, who we really are. So you are doing a great job with your workshops around the world. And we are so thankful that you are coming to Slovenia a few years now, so we can be a better people in Slovenia.
And I want to make a comment just for what you said.
Sure.
The amount of time that it will take to heal humanity is the amount of time that it takes you to heal yourself. Because really, truly, if every individual focused on what they need to focus on for their own development, growth, expansion, and to not even use those words, but just to say, to focus on what they need to be loving, orgasmic, unconditionally loving beings, if we focused on that and one person changes, you just change humanity. So we oftentimes think about these huge changes that have to go on globally, but we don't even realize that it starts with each individual, and that each individual makes a huge impact, much bigger than we could ever imagine.
Right. Okay, that was a good question. Because I was aiming towards if you already have this knowledge that you have also shared with others as being prepared to work as therapists as well. I mean, you do workshops, you know, for people to heal, but do you also do
trainings for professionals?
Exactly.
Yes and no.
So there would be more Sashas in the world.
Yeah, but here's how Sasha came about. Sasha comes about because she's all the time paying attention to herself. And she's not trying to save the world. That's how Sasha comes about. So you have a lot of people trying to change the world, but they don't want to look at themselves. And the reason why I said yes and no is because a lot of my clients are professionals, therapists, you know, in all different kinds of fields, whether it's psychology, therapy, sexologists, that whole spectrum of people that are helping others. But they realize they have to help themselves. So the greatest training that one can provide for any individual is helping them get closer to themselves. You cannot help others with information. You can help them with wisdom, and wisdom comes from experience. So the more that you understand yourself, the more that you will be able to naturally, without being trained, understand how to help other people.
Great.
So do I do trainings? I am consistently helping people with their own individual process, and that is their training, and it makes a huge impact on their professional life.
And this is the solution.
The solution is an individual one for everything, for everything. Start with you, then bring it out into the person closest to you. Be it your partner, be it your daughter, be it your son, family member, and then from there go to your friends. From there go to your neighbors and expand out that way. It's so individual, and that is incredibly powerful and so important.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For
It's
all the
been a
wisdoms.
pleasure.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.